And so we are going to break down all of the differences between the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs today. If you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. You can like and share this video. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about the Enneagram first. So one of the things that we should really fully define about the Enneagram has its ancient roots, possibly either from something called Sufism or Christian mystics. The whole concept of the Enneagram is related to personal growth, therapy, relationship counseling. As I mentioned before, it's also used in coaching as well as in spiritual direction. If we look at some of the 9 descriptive factors of the Enneagram, we have the reformer, which is more of the rational, idealistic type. We have the helper, caring and interpersonal. We have the achiever, who is success driven. We have the individualist, which is a sensitive, withdrawn type. We have the investigator, intense, cerebral type. The loyalist, which is more security oriented, anxious, suspicious. We have the enthusiast, which is busy, fun loving, spontaneous. The challenger, which is powerful, dominating. And of course, the peacemaker, which is easygoing, as well as receptive and reassuring. Now, both the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs have been popular as it relates to pop psychology. These are typically not diagnostic tools. So what I mean by that is, for me as a clinical psychologist, I would typically not use the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs to assess personality or psychopathology. You know, if someone wanted to use this as it relates to a business model, coaching model, then that could be potentially a conversation that I could have with the client. As it relates to Myers-Briggs, Myers-Briggs was developed in the 1940s by Isabel Briggs Myers and Catherine Cook Briggs. It was based on Carl Jung's theories of cognitive functions. It's originally has been used for the workplace as well as for team development. Its use is for corporate trainings, leadership development, as well as career counseling. It's also common obviously in pop psychology. It's also not typically used as a diagnostic tool. Its aim is to improve self-awareness and interpersonal understanding. I know a lot of business coaches, executive coaches, as well as industrial organizational psychologists that might get training formally in Myers-Briggs and actually use it within their practice. Again, they might use it to train executives. They might use it to train CEOs. They might use it to train leadership in Fortune 500 companies. And so when we look at some of the differences between Myers-Briggs and Enneagram, with Myers-Briggs, you have these 16 types, or sort of these 4-letter codes that combines these aspects of extroversion and introversion and so forth. With the Enneagram, you have the 9 types, or you also have subtypes. So someone could be like a 9-3 or like a 4-2, right? So you have your main type, and then you have maybe a subtype along with that. For the Myers-Briggs, it's based on Jungian theory. And for the Enneagram, it's based on spiritual and psychodynamic roots. One of the things that I've also talked about too is that when you think about the Myers-Briggs, you want to think about it from more of a cognitive style sort of perception. But for the Enneagram, it's sort of core motivation. It's looking at your fears. In terms of just the changeability for Myers-Briggs, it does tend to be more static over time. But for Enneagram, the focus can be on growth and change. I know a lot of people who will oftentimes take the Myers-Briggs early on in their adolescence and realize that they have different types of codes later on in their adulthood. And I've heard similar things for the Enneagram. I've heard that Myers-Briggs tends to be more consistent throughout your life, and then the Enneagram can change and grow based on your personality or your temperament, also based on your career goals as well, or how life kind of impacts you and influences you. So here's the thing: when it comes to the scientific backing of specifically the Myers-Briggs, there is some backing when it comes to research and evidence-based theories and so forth. There's almost essentially very limited evidence-based research on the Enneagram. So when we're talking about just research and evidence-based tools, both of these concepts, the Myers-Briggs as well as the Enneagram, hopefully you're not using it based on research, because there's just very limited research on both sides of the coin. So if we were to actually look at the research, we know Myers-Briggs is popular, but it's criticized for its poor reliability as well as the validity. And honestly, oftentimes people will get different types when retaking it, or based on where you take it in terms of the website or in terms of the quiz. And it doesn't necessarily fully predict job success and performance, or even potentially behavior. I would say the Enneagram actually has even less scientific support than the Myers-Briggs, and it's also viewed as something that's more spiritual and philosophical. Now, there are some exploratory studies, but nothing really close to the standards of really strong, valid psychometric standards where a clinical psychologist could say, well, I use this test because of this evidence. And I think that's part of the reason why both of these personality assessments have not been fully integrated within the landscape of clinical psychology and therapy. Which one is better, right? If you had to pick one, which one is actually better? Well, neither one is strong from an empirical perspective. If you had to choose, I think Myers-Briggs has slightly more psychometric research. I think one diagnostic tool is the Big Five or Neo PI, which tends to be fairly evidence-based as it relates to personality assessment. And this is also something that's actually used and embedded clinically as it relates to therapeutic practice. I will say both tools can definitely spark reflection. But if we're talking about major life decisions, if we're talking about necessarily career assessment or clinical assessment, I would say these are tools to be used alongside other psychometric-based tools that have much more evidence support and are backed up much more scientifically. Now, it's not to say that as more research comes out on this, that maybe the elements of either the Enneagram or the Myers-Briggs could change. But I would love to know for you all, is there one in particular that you like, whether it's the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs? Is there one that you would potentially choose for me or even for yourself? Put it down in the comment section below which team that you are on as it relates to Myers-Briggs or Enneagram. You know, I've done both Myers-Briggs and I've also done the Enneagram as well. If I had to have a specific preference, I might lean more towards the Myers-Briggs, but that is just my personal preference. If you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. But with that, I hope to see you all in the next video.